I'm going to take you through the adjudication court claim forms. So these have not been finalized, but we don't believe that the content will change. The structure might change, but the content we believe will be very similar to what we have here. So this is the first question you're going to have is, what water do you claim? And you're going to want to claim all the water you're using. So if you're irrigating crops, if you have any kind of domestic use, if you have stock watering, if you have commercial industrial use. So I put up examples. So if you are filling sprayers or washing equipment, that's its own bucket of water to claim. If you have a commercial use, so if you are using up to 5,000 gallons a day and you are selling something, dahlias or carrots or whatever it is, you can claim that amount as well. So I want you to think of these as accumulative water uses, not one or the other. So the court claim form is going to come based on your parcel. So you could have multiple uses on your parcel. So the court claim form right now is broken into 3 pieces. So there's a Part A, a Part B, and a Part C. So the Part A is for a small domestic groundwater use. So right now, permit exempt domestic groundwater use is up to 5,000 gallons per day. If you go through this Part A, the small domestic, it's 500 gallons per day and up to half an acre of irrigation. There's a path to go through this smaller amount, or you can go through a larger domestic use, which I'm going to spend more time going on the larger water uses. If this pertains to you, Whatcom County and Aspect Consulting are very helpful and have the knowledge to go through and resources to help you with this. As I go through my slides, if you see that sticker, resources available, those are going to be addressed in Jay Chenault's speech next. So my hope is that we can go through the questions, you can really understand what ecology is asking, and then his speech will give you places to find those resources. So Part B, this is the large water use. So again, if you are using more than 500 gallons per day, if you're irrigating crops, stock, commercial, industrial, or those uses, you're going to want to file under this bigger water use. So I'm just going to go through the court claim form as it is now. So when you get that certified letter in the mail, it's going to come with an adjudication ID number. So you're going to want to input that. That's how they're going to link you with their information to this court claim form that you're going to fill out. So they're asking for the claimant information. If you are a sole owner of that parcel, or if you're a business that is the sole owner of that parcel, you'll have one claimant and you'll move on. If you own that parcel with your spouse, you're going to have 2 claimants. If you and your spouse own that parcel with your brother and his spouse, you're going to have 4 claimants. The paperwork is set up to have 2, but I'll show you at the end of their form where you can add more information. So they're just going to ask for address, email, phone number, kind of the basics. What is your legal basis of water? Do you have a water right? So do you have a permit, a claim, a certificate? They're going to ask you for that document number. Do you have permit exempt use? Those ones we just went over. Or do you have other? Do you have an application that didn't move past the application phase? Do you have water use that predates the water code that Bill talked about, but doesn't have a claim? A claim was never filed. If in order to get in front of the court to have them look at those water uses, you want to get that information on the form. When did your water use first begin? So if you have a water rights certificate, you will have been given a priority date when the application was accepted by ecology, and that same date will follow through all of those documents. That'll be your first, when the water was first put to beneficial use. If you have a claim that predates the certificate, it would be when, if you can find out through historical photos or family history or neighbors, when the land was first cleared, that would be your date when the water was first steps taken to beneficial use. If you know the construction date of either the the withdrawal of the diversion, when it began, when it was completed, you can put it here. If you don't know, that's fine. So there's a path through adjudication to amend these later. So if you find information later, you can amend your forms. So remember that, don't get hung up on not submitting it because you don't know all these answers. What is your source of water? Do you have surface water, a pond, a lake, a river? Is it coming from groundwater? So a well or an infiltration trench, or using both? So now they ask specifically, if you checked surface water, where is that coming from? Spring, creek, river, lake? They want to know that. What is your source name? So is it coming from the fish trap, for instance, which is a tributary to the Nooksack? They want to know all those questions. They want to know what you call your diversion. So if you call it whatever you call it, they want to know that. And if you have more than one diversion or more than one well, you'll need to enter this information for each one. So then specifically for groundwater, do you know how deep your well is? Does it have an ecology tag? And what do you call it? Do you call it Grandpa's well, Old Smith well? They want to know what you're calling it. So where is this well or surface water diversion located? They want to know your address, your parcel number, GPS, so your latitude, longitude. Your phones can do that very easily. If you've had it surveyed, you can put the legal description there. If you haven't, that's fine. And do you own the land where this is taking place? So is it on your land? If not, if it's on your neighbor's land and you have an easement, they want to know your neighbor's name. So they've established where the water's coming from. Where is it being used? Is it being used on the same parcel that you're withdrawing from? Is it coming from a different parcel? You could potentially check both those boxes if it's coming from your parcel and you also own the parcel next to it. Do you own all the parcels within the place of use? This would be within a water right. Do you own all of them? If not, they're asking for the names of the other owners. They want to know the parcel and your address. So then they have a table for each type of water use. So I'm going to go kind of thoroughly through the irrigation because many of these questions are the same for each table. So for irrigation, so instantaneous quantity of water. So this is the gallons per minute if it's a well, cubic feet per second if you're diverting from a surface water. So they want to know what's the current rate you're using, what's the maximum rate you've used, and what are you going to claim. So you might have a water right for 250 gallons per minute and you've always used that. You're using it now, that's the highest you've ever used, that's what you're claiming, straightforward. Maybe you have blueberries now, but it was in grass before. So blueberries with drip is going to have a slower GPM. The grass with a moving big gun is going to need a higher GPM. That would be an example of a different maximum from what you're currently using. So that's their first set of questions. Then they want to know the annual quantity. So if you picture it as a bucket, how full was your bucket that you're currently using? Historically, how much annual water did you use and what are you going to claim? And then they want to know your season of use, so the dates of irrigation. And I encourage you to look past just what maybe last year. Last year's a good example where maybe you didn't even irrigate in May, it was so wet. So you want to think back, when was my first date of irrigation? How late in the season have I gone with irrigation? And your water right might have boundaries on that, but you want to make sure you don't just look at what you've done recently. So for stock watering, the same questions for instantaneous rate and annual quantity rate. They're not going to ask about irrigation, because a stock watering exempt doesn't include the irrigation of the food that the stock uses. And for the dates of stock watering, very well might be January 1st through December 31st. Commercial industrial, same questions, instantaneous rate questions, annual consumptive rate questions, and date of use. So domestic, this is again for the larger quantity of water, same questions. Well, they're going to ask how many houses are on your parcel that you're using this for. And then instantaneous rate, annual consumptive rate, then they're asking the size of your irrigation currently, or yeah, your non-commercial use irrigation. Currently, the maximum, what you're gonna claim, and your date of seasonal use. They're acknowledging that your domestic use is gonna be year-round, but what is your seasonal use? I'm not gonna go over municipal in here or hydropower, I don't think it pertains, but I wanna touch on storage. So if you have storage over 10 acre feet per year, so if you picture that, that's 3.2 million gallons. If it's 5 feet deep, it's 2 acres, 10 feet deep, an acre. If you are storing that amount of water that would trigger a reservoir permit, you need to fill this out. If you're using a manure pond that's smaller than that, or irrigation pond that's smaller than that, you don't need to fill this out unless it's over the 10 acre feet. So it's the last question of Part B. They want to know, any additional information. If you had more claimants, you would put it here. If you had more than one well or one diversion, you'd put that information here. If you have pre-code water use, you do explain that here. If you have de facto use, so an example would be you have a water right for 40 acres and you own all 40 acres, and over time you built a house and some barns and maybe an irrigation pond, and all of a sudden you're irrigating 30 acres, and so you bought 10 acres from your neighbor, and you're still continuing to irrigate 40 acres, you might qualify for de facto change, and they might address it in the court. So you'd want to put that in this section here. So that's the bulk of the claim form. The next section is just signatures. So each claimant needs to sign, and then you need to file it. There's a couple paths to file. You can file it, you can go through their e-filing system, you can go online, and these questions will be online, and you can just fill it out and e-file it. You can fill it out hard copy, scan it, and then e-file it. You can fill out the paper form and hand deliver it to the Whatcom County Superior Court, or you can fill it out, the paper form, and mail it to the Whatcom County Superior Court. So that's the gist of the claim form. I just want to remind you that in order to get water when the adjudication is all finished, you need to get your name into the adjudication. So if it's not filled out completely, it's still better to have it in the adjudication, or else you won't be part of the water result at the end. So that's all.